What does the Bible say about the solar eclipse? Hey there, friends. Welcome back to our channel. Today we're exploring a fascinating celestial phenomenon. What does the Bible say about solar eclipses? While solar eclipses are awe-inspiring scientific events, they've also held spiritual significance for many cultures throughout history. Let's dive into what the Bible tells us about these remarkable occurrences. First off, it's important to note that the Bible doesn't specifically use the term solar eclipse. However, there are several references to darkening of the sun that could potentially be interpreted as describing eclipses or similar celestial events. Let's explore these passages. 1. The prophecy of Amos. In Amos 8:9 we read, "In that day declares the sovereign Lord, I will make the sun go down at noon and darken the earth in broad daylight." This verse is part of a prophecy about judgment, and some scholars have suggested it could be referring to a solar eclipse. The description of the sun going dark in the middle of the day certainly fits with what happens during a total solar eclipse. 2. The crucifixion of Jesus. During Jesus' crucifixion, the Gospels report a period of darkness. Luke 23:44-45 says, "It was now about noon, and darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m, for the sun stopped shining." While some have suggested this could have been a solar eclipse, it's worth noting that the darkness lasted for 3 hours, which is much longer than a typical solar eclipse. Additionally, Passover is always held at full moon when solar eclipses can't occur. This suggests the darkness was likely miraculous rather than a natural eclipse. 3. Signs of the end times. In his teachings about the end times, Jesus mentions celestial signs. In Matthew 24:29, he says, "Immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken." While this isn't specifically about a solar eclipse, it does mention the darkening of the sun as a significant sign. 4. Joel's prophecy. The prophet Joel also speaks of celestial signs. In Joel 2:31, we read, "The sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood, before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord." This verse is later quoted by Peter in Acts 2:20. While the moon to blood could potentially refer to a lunar eclipse, the sun turning to darkness could be interpreted as a solar eclipse or a similar event. Now let's consider some key points about how we might interpret these passages. 1. Natural phenomena as signs. Throughout the Bible, natural phenomena are often seen as signs from God. In Genesis 9:13, God sets a rainbow in the sky as a sign of his covenant, so it's not unusual for celestial events to be viewed as spiritually significant. 2. God's control over nature. These passages emphasize God's power over creation. Whether or not they refer to literal eclipses, they remind us that God is in control of the natural world. 3. Apocalyptic language. Some of these passages, particularly those referring to end times, use apocalyptic language. This style of writing often uses cosmic imagery to convey spiritual truths and may not always be meant to be taken literally. 4. Scientific understanding. It's important to remember that the biblical authors didn't have our modern scientific understanding of eclipses. They were describing what they saw in terms they understood. So, what can we take away from this? 1. Wonder at God's creation. Solar eclipses, whether specifically mentioned in the Bible or not, are amazing displays of the intricate workings of our universe. They can inspire awe at God's creative power. 2. Signs and wonders. While we should be cautious about over-interpreting natural events, the Bible does suggest that God can use nature to communicate with us. 3. Balancing faith and science. As Christians, we can appreciate both the scientific explanation for eclipses and their potential spiritual significance. The two are not mutually exclusive. 4. Preparedness. The passages about celestial signs often relate to being prepared for Christ's return. Solar eclipses can serve as a reminder to always be ready, as Jesus taught. 5. God's sovereignty. Ultimately, these passages remind us of God's power over all creation, including the sun, moon, and stars. In conclusion, while the Bible doesn't explicitly mention solar eclipses, it does speak of the sun being darkened as a sign of God's power and as a precursor to significant events. Whether or not these passages refer to literal eclipses, they remind us of God's sovereignty over creation and call us to be attentive to his work in the world around us. What are your thoughts on this topic? Have you ever witnessed a solar eclipse? How did it impact you spiritually? Share your experiences in the comments, but please keep the discussion respectful and kind. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. We explore fascinating intersections of faith and the natural world every week, always striving to deepen our understanding of God's amazing creation. Until next time, keep seeking God's truth, marveling at his creation, and remember, the same God who orchestrates the movements of the sun and moon cares deeply for you.